Hello, everybody.
Anytime you like, James.
I know. Hello, everybody. Welcome to tonight's live stream. Thank you for being with us. It's good to see so many people of you in the chat already. Hello. I'm JD. I'm joined tonight by, as ever, our exec producer, Matt. Hello, Matt. How's it going?
Hello. I'm very good, thank you.
Good. And we are joined by Sam, who is in a slightly different capacity tonight to what he might normally be. He is actually his creative director role tonight, so we might get. Are we going to get a different persona, Sam, or are we going to get same old Colonel?
Only
Failure?
worse.
Only worse.
Only worse.
Fine. I think that's what the audience wants. So let's the players want that. Let's keep it going. So tonight, everybody, this is kind of a long-awaited live stream. I think we will be doing our Q&A segment. Thank you very much for everybody that submitted questions for the Q&A. And we'll be coming to that in about 15-20 minutes or so. We've got a load of questions to go through from you guys. We'll give a little bit of a rundown of how we've collated the questions and how we're going to be answering them when we get to that section. First of all, tonight, though, we have something a little bit exciting for you because we are going to be showing off Kassel-Würzburg on Thursday, but we also wanted to give you a little bit of a teaser for what's coming up with Train Sim World 3, and we thought what better way to do that than to take you through some of the menu screens, as well as also the new UI, and of course the menu music as well, which some of you might have clocked when we were doing the countdown as well. This is why Sam's here tonight. So Sam, can you tell us a little bit about the mentality behind creating the new UI for Train Sim World 3? And
I sure can, JD. That's no problem.
Would you? I know, I teed you up nicely for that one.
No, it's good. I only just cut you off as well. What we wanted to do, coming out of TSW2, we knew that the menu system needed overhauling. It ran quite slowly, and the worst offence that it committed is it wasn't intuitive. People got used to it. People got used to using it the way that it was, but it was not an obvious thing to navigate around, particularly the spinning wheel of route death, with all of those thumbnails of all the routes going on there, and in no logical order whatsoever. The number of times I'd scroll past the route I was actually looking for 3-4 times before I actually clocked the thing. So the foundation point was make it run faster and make it more intuitive to use.
Awesome.
And I've done you a little video.
You teed me up there nicely there, Sam. It's almost like we used to present live streams. Thanks very much. Yeah, Sam has pre-recorded some stuff for us tonight to be able to show you kind of the opening sequence of Train Sim World 3, as well as a few other bits and pieces that he's going to do a little bit of narrating over the top of it as well. We can do a little bit of live Q&A for this as well, so if there are any questions that you've got that come in, please chuck them in the chat. The opportunity to do live Q&A, we'll try and squeeze some in later, but we have got a lot of questions later. So use this as your opportunity to ask questions about the UI. So should we go through that video?
Yes.
All right. Okay.
Matt, feel free to throw in anytime you like. This is not the me show, because obviously I should preface this. This isn't me tooting my own trumpet. I am but one part of a team that has put this together. All of this has come out of discussions between me and Matt and Jordan and Kat. Kat was contributing to this as well. And then I need to name check the rest of the team, because I've done most of the team now. I've got to name check everybody. Please hold. Wait for it. Hold on. Wait for it. Hang on. Wait for it. Wait. Never mind. Lots of really useful and brilliant pick. Cass has been involved. Cassie's been leading the QA, and Francesca's been leading the programming on it. And Jordan's produced the whole thing. An awful lot of work over many months has pulled this together. So there you go.
Let's take it away, shall we? Yeah, I'm just going to pause you here, Sam. Just going to quickly pause you here, just because I want to try and make sure that everyone properly. I know. I just let's see if we can just make sure that we can get your lovely audio over the top of it as well. There we go. Let's see if that works. Take it away.
So many people observed that we didn't show off the ability to select a route last time around. So yes, you can still select by route first, but selecting by train first was all important, because quite often you will have a train that you've picked up through one route or another, and through Matt's glorious work adding layers to this, that, and the other, you've actually no idea which routes it runs on now. So being able to pick up the route for your favorite train, magnifico. Now, I'm showing off weather at this point, so this is showing off dynamic weather, and we still have custom weather available. So if you want to lock into one particular weather pattern throughout, then there's no problem with that. But dynamic weather, you can set the start point for dynamic weather, and it will evolve from there based on however it fancies going. But you're going to be straight into the game much quicker. Yes, there are quite a lot of nested menus, but that's because there's quite a lot that you can do in the game, and there's no way of not nesting a lot of this stuff together. So timetables, you can go straight into the timetable from your favorite loco and get started easily. Now, if you're choosing your liveries on the previous screen, I skipped through this rather too fast. You know what? I should do this live next time. I can then go at a pace that people can follow, and that'll be good. But you can choose your liveries in a much more coherent fashion. The whole thing's better. Trust me. I mean, I'm not going to tell you it's the answer to everything, but it is a heck of a lot better. Now, the last thing we've got here is you can go into the journeys directly from the to the trains menu, and pick up the journey that you were last playing. What about trains with multiple versions? That's a Mac question, because that actually ties more into the training centre.
Well,
Pause the video, James.
Let's pause that video. Let's go quickly back to... Oh, no.
Matt, did you hear the question?
Yeah, trains with multiple versions. So, if you, for example, if you've got the 55 versions of the BR185 or something, what happens when you select a train? You see the list on the right-hand side. It will still just show up as multiple entries on the list on the right-hand side. So the database itself hasn't been gone through and cleansed up. It just shows all of the different variants, and that because they're, to some extent, they are different. They're different compatibilities, so it is not a straightforward job. There is a reason why there are multiple train instances, and it is a question that's asked later on. So I'll go over it when we're not looking at the UI.
Yep, cool.
So
Sam,
we're poking around in the profile section here, and I didn't even get to say my bit about quick play, but if you watch this bit of video back again, this is seamless. This is absolutely flawless commentary we've got going on here. The profile will allow you to see your progress everywhere, and we did spot through our telemetry that quite a few people use multiple profiles, and therefore we've made it easier to switch between them and to create a new one anytime you like. Within Dovetail Live, you've got your current mastery progress as well as the mastery rewards. I'm not logged into Dovetail Live. I can never remember my password. But we've moved all the tools for creation within the Creators Hub, so within Creators Club, and I'm now making a scenario. So the first thing, if you've played with Scenario Planner before, the first thing you'll notice is you've got the on or off rails toggle right here when you create it. That alone has saved you 6 button clicks. I know, it's pretty impressive stuff. We went through this top to bottom and looked at everything that was annoying about Scenario Planner in terms of the menu system before, and changed it so that it is no longer as annoying. Instead of picking a name of a loco from a list, you now actually get to see what it looks like, so you actually get to see what your train looks like. Setting the whole thing up, Matt, how long did you say the difference in time was?
So one of the beta testers was using it, and it was about 13 minutes in TSW2, and to do the same job in TSW3 took him 3.
Yeah. So one of the other functions we've put in is the ability to immediately duplicate a scenario that you've already made. So if you've made a base timetable that you want to do multiple things with, you can do just that. And the same's true in the livery designer as well. The first thing that we've added into the UI here is you can now see what it is that you're actually changing. So if your knowledge of individual wagons and what they're actually called isn't superb, you can actually see the thing that you're chasing after. Beyond that, we haven't changed the tools. We know there's lots and lots of changes that we want to make to them, and that's something to talk about on a later stream. But for TSW3's launch, yes, it is, Matt. No, you can't shake it off. You know we've got to do it. But it's not coming for TSW3 at launch, but it is something that we're going to talk about more. And again, copying your liveries, piece of cake. You can manage everything from here. There you go. That's the liveries. I think I even go into the store menu because I'm feeling lively. Ooh. Yeah, here we go. Look, there's the store menu. Now the store menu itself hasn't actually changed. I just thought you might like to see all of the store stuff. Has anything changed with the livery limit? No change for the limit at the moment, but that needs to be evaluated a little bit further. And there's a nice picture of Sandpatch Grade, or Sandgr, as it's known here, ready for the game Train Woe. Nice, good choice of image there for the store. And then we go into the settings. Once again, no real change to the number of different settings that you've got, but we have hopefully made it slightly easier to navigate through and find the things that you're looking for. Jordan spent a lot of time trying to logically group these together and then trying to order them in a way that was likely to be most useful to the most number of people.
So we'll just expand on that. There are some cool new settings in there. There are new ones, which are things like the lightning and arc and spark. You can turn them off in the under accessibility. You can control things like distances, imperial units, and so forth. So if you're in American train, you want to count down instead of from 1 mile from further out. There are actually a number of new toggles in there.
Good to know. Well worth knowing. The main thing about the menu is the menu should never get in the way of you being able to get into the game. It is merely the means by which you go do the thing you want to do. If the menu's getting in the way of that or slowing you down for any reason at all, then the menu is not doing its job. So we wanted to make it as straightforward as possible and as quick as possible to get through. I'm just in the training centre now, and you can see that the LZB introduction there, just for those who picked up on it, was actually taking part on the route itself rather than training centre, because specialised tutorials will always be conducted where the specialised equipment needed for it exists. Most of the time they'll be in the training centre, but quite a lot of the time you will be out on your route. There you go. That's about it. It's a little bit cumbersome, but I didn't realise that there was no sound to start with. But hopefully you can play through that video again, and you can. That was all taken directly from the game. It wasn't just a slideshow. So you can see for yourself exactly how the menu flows together.
Yeah, and I think so. We've tried to give you kind of as much of a slice as we possibly can do of everything to do with that. You're going to see a couple of other pre-recorded bits and pieces as we go through.
We've got double audio now, JD. Good.
Sorry.
This is not why you got into the game.
No, it's not, is it? No.
This streaming cable was not the first thing you wanted to do.
I'm not a production manager, unfortunately, no. I'm having to do the best with what I have, which is not an awful lot of experience doing this. So please thank you for bearing with us, and we will hopefully that is better. Good. Okay, fine. And you'll be pleased to know that is the last time we're going to be playing any kind of different audio over the course of the stream. So you are all set up. Okay. So Sam, just a couple of quick other things that have come from the UI. Obviously, we believe this makes things an awful lot more simple. From a player's perspective, if we were talking about quick start, the quick start option, can you give us a little bit more information about that?
Yeah, so quick drive, it was shown in the video, but the quick drive option, it's really, really simple. You press quick drive because sometimes you don't know what you want to do. I'm certainly coming from my own perspective. I'll turn up and go, I want to drive something, but I'm not sure what. If you hit quick drive, you have the choice of under 30 minutes or over 30 minutes, and it will instantly choose something you haven't completed from either the under or over 30-minute category and jump you straight in. So you'll be straight into the action, and it's one way to complete all of the things you haven't yet done. I noticed earlier that when I selected quick drive, it chucked me into a tutorial, because it will get the tutorials out of the way first, and then it will take you into either scenarios or timetable. You won't ever repeat one that you've done before. Obviously, with timetable services, you'll be operating the same service at different time of day. But some people might never ever use it. But sometimes you just kind of go, I've got 5 routes. I don't know what I want to do. I'll just chuck me in something and we'll go from there. Yeah. And who knows, maybe you'll discover a loco that you'd previously only kind of touched the surface of, and it'll give you the opportunity to play it through in a bit more depth. Maybe you'll find a new favourite route or a new favourite service.
Yeah, and I think it's shorter than 30 minutes and longer than 30 minutes, and that's how we're breaking it up.
That's right.
Yeah, so if you do want to pop, like say for instance, you know you've not got an awful lot of time, but you want to do something in game, you can just choose a less than 30-minute one, and you kind of go in and you can do what you want. Whereas the slightly longer ones, obviously, if you've got a bit more time. I think we talked about this briefly in the roadmap stream last week. We kind of didn't want to give it too much more than that, because we wanted to be able to test and see what people were using before we then added more options in. So it feels like a really cool feature for players who perhaps are a little bit they don't really mind.
It's nifty. It's a knucklehead kind of a feature, and not really worth making a song and a dance about. I mean, the whole menu, it's not really worth making a song and a dance about, because on a good menu you don't really notice it. You because it doesn't get in the way, it doesn't make a fuss, it doesn't annoy you. And the one thing that I kept repeating to people, because I had, while we were kind of thrashing around ideas for this. I had some people going, well, hold on, you can get to that from that page back there. I kind of go, yeah, but as a player, I expect to be able to do that here. And it doesn't matter if we have repeated it 15 times throughout the menu. If a player expects to find it in a particular place, they should find it there. So we just want the menu to get out of the way so that you can enjoy operating your trains.
As it should be. Absolutely, as it
Yeah.
should be. Okay, cool. I'm just trying to see if there's anything else on that I've seen asked in the chat. Is there anything you've picked out, Sam, since you've been doing a look, since you've been taking a look through?
I think I picked up the couple that I saw while I was supposed to be talking about something else, which is fatal. When when I've got the chat turned on, I'm useless. I have to, anything. But no, I mean, if you do have more questions, you can chuck them over via the forum or ask them later in this stream. Because as much as I might disappear into the background, I'll still be here.
Absolutely. And speaking of disappearing into the background, obviously, Sam, you were kind of
you're done with me.
You were kind of cameoing tonight. You will be back though, because you're doing the training center stream next week with Adam.
I am. I'm interviewing Adam.
Yes. So you'll be taking on the presentation broadcast manager role, and hopefully you'll do it slightly better than I'm doing tonight. But Sam will be back next week with Adam. But I think he said he'd stay along in the chat if there are any questions about the UI that you have in the chat. So thank you very much, Sam, for your time tonight. We're going to move on to the Q&A. Sam, do you want to give a little wave goodbye to everybody?
I'm giving a thumbs up.
That's
fair
enough.
Positive.
All right. See you a little bit later.
Bye.
And then there were two. Hello, Matt. I know you've not really had a chance to speak so much so far, but actually we're going to get you in and we're going to be talking an awful lot for the remainder of this live stream. I bet you can't wait.
Oh, hyped.
Just quickly before we get into the Q&A, so a lot of these questions have been asked by players in our forum thread that we set up specifically for tonight's live stream. So in terms of live Q&A, we might not have an opportunity to do too much of that because there is a lot to go through. We have about, I think, 8 or 9 pages worth of different questions to ask. So we're going to go through those first, and if we've got any time at the end, we're going to go through some live questions as well. Hopefully we'll be able to cover most of what you'll be asking over the course of the next the next 2 or 3 weeks before release on September the 6th. So a lot of these are TSW3 focused. There will be a couple of nods to TSW2 content as well, but we're going to try and cover as much as we can. Also, before we get started, we released a dev diary today, which was rather exciting. It tells a little bit about UI, which is kind of why we've done the live stream tonight, but also about lots of different other bits and pieces that you might find really interesting about how we're offering a little bit more freedom within the game. A lot of really nice feedback so far. You might also notice the little faux pas that we made on the stream as well, on the video as well. So going to get ahead of that right now. It is for something that is currently a third-party project, and we're not going to be talking about it in any more detail until we have more for you. But it's a long way off yet, so don't expect anything anytime soon. You've been warned. So going into the Q&A then. I think probably the first question really that's the best thing to go into, Matt, to begin with is, why Train Sim World 3? At what point do we feel like this is a direction that we wanted to go in? What justifies this being a new game to a player?
So there's a number of reasons. One of them is that we wanted to get ourselves into a place where we can do the loco uncoupling. Sounds very railway, doesn't it? The decoupling locos from routes and so forth, and using Training Center to achieve that. So there's like a combination of things going on there, trying to achieve that and getting the core lined up. And some of those things we just can't do with what's already in place. It's very difficult, particularly on a lot of the platforms. Steam is one of the few where we've got a lot more flexibility, but on most of the platforms, difficult to change what's up there in any structural sort of way. So we've taken the opportunity to lay the foundations for that. Another thing that we wanted to do was to get ahead of the achievements problem, where particularly on one of the platforms, there's a limit on the number of achievements that we hit, and the challenge there has been, because there's no change to the platform in terms of that limitation on the number of achievements. So we've restructured and reworked how we do how we do achievements at all, so that we can work within their system, work within some new guidelines that we've actually worked with the platform to work with, which means that we can get back to doing achievements again. Yeah, so it's going to be different. We'll come to more about how achievements will work going forwards, but it means there'll be less achievements per release, but every release should have should have those achievements. So there's a number of structural things that are sort of in sort of the inner workings of how they game, and those kinds of that's two examples of how that manifests.
Yeah, and I think obviously from a player's perspective, the training center I think feels like the more substantial of those kind of two main reasons. Obviously, training center is, we're going to come on to this in a little bit, and obviously we've got the stream next week with Sam and Adam, but it feels like a little bit of a sandbox for us, as well as also a sandbox for players. We'll kind of show the physical space next week for training center, but there's a lot of opportunities there and a lot of possibilities where we previously wouldn't have had the ability to do that without the training center. So I guess if I'm drilling it down into those kind of two different areas, we've obviously got the other upgrades as well, which have come from the lighting and all that kind of stuff, which obviously need to start somewhere from where whether we have a blank, like a kind of a cut-off point or a blank slate, whatever you want to call it, there needs to be a point where we start doing those. But there's also then these kind of fundamental tools that we're improving and bringing in, like things like the training center, where the tutorials are all going to be in different places, but it also allows things like loco decoupling, which is going to be one of the kind of the key fundamental improvements with Train Sim World 3 as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Training center is great fun, and we've been having a lot of fun with it. In just even actually, it's become a route that the internal teams use for testing and deving on locos as well. So it's and I know that Adam and the team have got a lot more they want to do with training center into the future. So I think I'm excited by training center. It's a good start, and it'll be fun to see where it goes.
Absolutely. So let's talk. We'll put that to one side then for a second, and let's talk performance. We've had quite a lot of questions about various different types. So again, a little disclaimer. I've tried to group questions where possible, so that we're kind of going into the overall big questions at the moment. This is kind of the section that I'm calling big questions. We're going to go into other bits and pieces like training center specific stuff, route specific stuff a little bit later on in the stream. And if you don't see your question mentioned exactly how you've written it, it's because I've tried to condense various different themes of questions into one so that you get the information that you need, although it might not necessarily be how you exactly wrote it in the forum thread or whatever. So in terms of, we've seen a lot of questions about recommended specs. So we've obviously changed those as part of Train Sim World 3, and they are higher than you would expect on Train Sim World 2. I suppose a lot of people have been like, oh, is my computer going to be able to, or is my console going to be able to play this new game? And I guess what I'm asking, Matt, is should people be worried?
No, not at all. The recommended specs have been revised to be more in line with current hardware you buy. The previous recommended specs, I don't even think that hardware you can buy anymore. So it's not necessarily relevant in a lot of cases. They're also recommended is kind of at the top end for playing the game at 60 FPS 4K. It's absolutely at the top end, and it may be that lesser hardware even can do that, but we tried to pitch it down as like this is a decent recommendation. The actual game, the minimum spec for the game, I think is virtually identical to what it was in TSW2, and we were running the game on low settings at about 40 FPS with that recommended minimum hardware. So fundamentally the game performs the same compared to TSW2. The differences should be minor. So it's certainly on my machine here, it performs exactly the same as on TSW3 as it did on TSW2. So it was more a housekeeping thing to get everything lined up with current hardware, not actually a signifier of a change in optimization or a complexity or anything like that. The game, one more time, runs basically the same. Whatever you're seeing on TSW2, I'd expect roughly the same on TSW3.
That's encouraging to know, and I think hopefully allay a few fears that we've seen from players. There'll be players that ask, well, my specific setup, how will that work? We're not going to be able to give specific answers to that because we don't know what kind of is in your your files and all of that kind of stuff, it's very difficult for us to give an exact, okay, this is how yours is going to run, because there's lots and lots of factors
and
at play.
The detail does matter. But if you're already playing TSW2, you've already got a 99% idea of what it's going to run like. I did see one person asking there about how the game runs on Steam Deck. So while Steam Deck is not an officially supported platform, it will come up, or it should come up as playable on Steam Deck. I play it on one myself, so it runs fine. There are a few minor visual issues in the menu system, which is why it doesn't get the full tick at the moment. But in terms of playability, frame rate's good, gameplay's great.
Good to know. It doesn't have the little verified tick, does it? But it's playable.
There are 3 states of compatibility you can get, which is not playable, playable, and verified. So it'll come up with the playable thing, which is what TSW2 does.
Cool. 8th gen. I think this is probably going to be a little bit of a, we're still testing this at this stage, but in terms of if I'm on a PS5 or an Xbox One, should I expect any difference in performance or any difference in experience to somebody who is on a PC or on a PS5 or a Series X?
So yeah, 8th gen is going to run differently to 9th gen and PC. 9th gen and PC roughly we put in the same bucket. 8th gen would then be running generally in lower settings. So where, for example, and this is the same as TSW2. So if you're, again, whatever difference you see in TSW2 is the same as TSW3. So Gen 8, for example, does get the volumetric skies, but they're a lower definition than the Gen 9 volumetric skies. And there's a number of optimizations that the team have done, because originally we were only going to deliver Gen 9's the new Sky system actually to 9th gen and PC, because we didn't think it would work on the 8th gen consoles, but the team have worked hard and have been able to deliver it by rewriting chunks of Unreal to make it actually deliver it in the level of performance. So there's some really good stuff there where that's not affecting your frame rate, which is great. Things like your less layers on Gen 8 and shorter trains on Gen 8. The usual differences are the ones that you can expect. There's no new ways that is different between the two.
Okay, yeah, and obviously when we get closer to release and those are more specified, we'll let players know with as much notice as we can do what changes there will be, if any, to any of the experiences that you'll have. Like we did for Spirit of Steam. So if you are aware of what we did for Spirit of Steam, we kind of put together like a here's what you need to know style thread. The plan is to do a similar kind of thing with as much information as we can include within it that you're going to need to know before release. Cool. Okay, so let's talk save game, because that was obviously a hot topic of conversation from last week. For those players who are perhaps not aware, save game will be temporarily disabled on Train Sim World 3 whilst we put together a solution for solving it, and because we know it's been a problem for a long time now, and here's the point where we kind of say, well, actually, okay, we're putting lots of dedicated resource behind being able to solve it. So Matt, can you tell us a little bit about how we've got to this point, why we've made the decision that we made? Because it's not an easy decision to make by any means. Of course, we don't want to do this in an ideal world, and what we're doing to fix it.
So we've got to this point because it's a problem, one of those housekeeping problems that save game hasn't worked well since the beginning, and there have been a number of attempts to improve it, but they've never been substantial enough. They've never really respected the scale and scope of the problem, nor frankly the urgency of it either. This is where we come to the head, that to the situation we're at right now, where it's it's not great. We're now getting longer routes, and it's something that just needs fixing. It just needs everyone to stop what you're doing and just fix this problem. And that's where we're at now. So once the team finish up on they're focusing on optimization at the moment, and that'll be over the next 2 or 3 days, I think. And as they finish up on the optimization, we are forming a what we call a feature team, a dedicated group of people, and what they're going to be doing is going through all of the different features of save game. Well, not different features, but all the different aspects, the detail of save game. It's not one thing. Save game is not one thing. You've got the locos are complex vehicles themselves. They're complex systems, and they have to be saved out and restored in exactly the same state, including all the onboard systems and all the simulation and all the rest of it. Then all the signaling systems, all the dispatching systems, what the junctions are doing. There's all sorts of things, and then there's like a fourth dimensional element to it, because it's not just a question of putting all the trains in the right place and setting them all going. What order did train 1 request its route, and did it request its route before train 2 or after? Because that then affects how everything flows, and that specifically is one thing we know isn't working right. So that when the game restores, the dispatcher's re-executing them, and not necessarily in the same order, which is one of the reasons you end up with trains not running, because they've got deadlocked with each other. And sometimes the train in the back might have the route, and the train in the front can't now proceed. It sounds bonkers. Why would it even work like that? It's a computer thing. It's how programs, when they've got bugs, it's how they misbehave. So this is just one example that we've found where that needs to be looked at. But it's actually a super complicated system that needs to all work. And that we're going to bring in the feature team. There'll be engineering, there'll be the content teams, the gameplay teams, and get all of these people from each of these teams actually working together alongside QA, who will then be testing and finding more data. So it is something that just needs a focus of attention, and that's what it's going to get. So that's where we're at on that one. We have done a pass. I've been talking about save game for a while now. So one of the things that the QA team have been doing is going to find additional finding more instances of the issue, and also going through all of the custom support tickets that have been raised, talking about save game, reproducing those particular issues and getting those put into our ticketing system as well. So this is, I think we've got a good library of stuff for the team to get worked on. But in addition to that, there is a thread that was talking about save game on the forums, and in response to that thread, I set up an Excel spreadsheet which I've asked for your help with. If you have the time and you're willing to, then you can help contribute to us examples of things that aren't working. So, and it's just give us the steps for what causes it. What we don't need is a save game or anything like that, because actually it's too late almost by then. We kind of need to reproduce it, then we can see what it should have done, restore the game and see what it didn't do right. So we need to reproduce it from the start. So we put a pinned post up with the instructions, with the link to the sheet, and it would be great if more people could help populate that with more examples for us, and that will help us so that over the next few days, as the team hit this issue, they'll hit the ground running straight away with loads of things. I mean, we've already got a database in our ticketing system of other issues, and we'll combine that with this plus anything else we're finding. But the more the better. Bluntly, the more the better. What I want to, I've said this in one post, I want to one-shot this problem. I want it gone. So the more examples that we can exhaustively try and say these are all now fixed, then we just don't see this problem again. And the latter part of this issue then is putting in place better processes for QA, so that we can make sure that they're then fundamentally testing it going forwards, so that if it doesn't work with save game, once we fixed it, if new things don't work with save game, they fail QA and we have to fix them before they go out. So we want not just a one-shot fix of that thing. We want to make sure this is fixed for good, because I'm as tired of this problem as you are. So let's just make it gone. Yeah, that's what we need to do.
I think that one might hold the record for the longest single answer to a question that I think we've ever had. But I hope everybody at home has found that useful.
I've got a PowerPoint ready if anyone wants.
So, I mean, it's not an easy decision, this. And we've had a few people come back to us and say, well, it's not happened to me, or I've only ever experienced it once or twice, and I'd rather it return back on. You put something together in the forums, just kind of summarizing why perhaps we are going almost nuclear with this for the time being, rather than doing something that's a bit more case by case or leaving it on for the time being while we get to a fix? Why are we choosing to completely shut it off?
So, in a lot of cases, and there's a very mixed messages actually from various posts on the forum. We know from what we see in customer support tickets, it's quite broken in many, many, many cases. And one of the problems is that it's not always obvious that it's broken. And a lot of players will waste a lot of time playing a restored game that will never work, and not know that until an hours later, where suddenly it stops working, and that's horrible. That's you feel if you it's not going to work, then we need to stop that. So because of that, we've taken, as JD said, the hard decision to just get rid of it for the time being. It's not got rid of; it's just been masked out so it doesn't show up. And we've it also notes to, I think, the other thing I wanted to be really clear with all the players is, I think it represents the severity with which we're seeing it. If we'd left it in, you could see it would, oh yeah, well, it's kind of there and we'll just kind of make it work. This is gone until it's fixed, and when it comes back, it's working. How long will it take? I don't know the answer to that, but what I am wanting to do with the team, and it's something I need to discuss with them, but one of the things that we want to do is to bring it back in stages. So as we get a route signed off, and yes, this always works. Every time we restore this route, it works. And every time we restore these trains, it works. We'll re-enable it for those bits. So we'll try and get it back as fast as we can, rather than waiting till it's all done. So we'll keep you along with the process as we go. Yeah, but that's why it's whatever the game offers, options the game offers you to do should work.
Okay, cool. So save game. Obviously, quite a long answer there, but hopefully it gives you an idea of kind of the severity that how we're addressing this. And obviously, we want this to be in as much. We released a TSW3 which has some of or we will be releasing TSW3 which has got some of the longest routes in game, and we want to try and make sure that you have the ability to enable a save game functionality. So we will be addressing this with the utmost importance. But again, timeframes are difficult because it's difficult to break down the scale of the challenge on each of the individual things that we're looking at. So, but when we have more information, we'll let you know.
Oh yeah, we'll definitely keep you up to speed.
Yep. Okay, so progress transfer. Now, that was something that we weren't really able to give a definitive response to in our FAQs. I think we're probably still in that stage right now. But Matt, can you give us an update on what we're doing with progress transfer? Because it is, again, something that is very important, and we know how your progress that you made on Train Sim World 2 and porting that into Train Sim World 3 is going to be perhaps a deal breaker for you at home if you want to actually upgrade to TSW3.
Yeah, so I'll start by just repeating what JD said there. As at this point, we are not saying anything different in that this is something we want to do, and we're still working on it. So don't take this as it is definitely in. However, we've had some really positive successes so far. We've been able to successfully port profiles between PlayStation, on the PlayStation 4 and on the PlayStation 5 up to TSW3. We've had success with Microsoft platforms today, in fact, getting those ported across. And we had a meeting today to discuss what that workflow would look like. So essentially, we're going to make it to where you can bring profiles. When you boot the game up, it'll ask you what profiles it's found in TSW2, and then bring it across into the ones that you select, you can bring across into TSW3. So we're making pretty good progress bringing stuff across, and in an upcoming stream, when we've got it to the point that it's in QA, I will tell you it's there. So, but what I didn't want to do was leave you all hanging, because we know how important this is.
That is a promise, Matt, and I'm going to hold you to that. And again, it's going to be one of those things that we talk about if there is anything that's required on your end as well. So, say for instance, there's a need to tick a button, that doesn't work. Tick a checkbox or click a button or find something where you might need to save something to a different location. We don't think it will be that. But if there is anything that is required on your end, again, we will let you know and we will shout it from the highest rooftops that we possibly can do.
It's not what we're seeing so far.
No.
So far, it's TSW3 detects you've got stuff, and then it gives you the option to bring stuff across. That's
Simple.
the proof of concepts we're trying are simple as possible to use.
Awesome. Okay, and obviously there is a certain element of this that will come from your Dovetail Live account as well. So things that are on Creators Club and all that kind of stuff will be on your Dovetail Live account rather than your profile. So if you log into your Dovetail Live account, you should be able to download things like your liveries and your scenarios from Creators Club when you get access to the game. So there's a little nuance involved in that because there's some that are attached to different parts of profiles. But again, we'll kind of fill you in a slightly more. I reckon it deserves, if it kind of gets over the line, Matt, it'll probably deserve an article in itself just to kind of highlight everything that is involved in this.
Yeah, there's a number of questions coming in about is this included, is that included? In theory, most of it should be included. But again, once it's done, let me confirm for you what's there. We are desperately trying to get everything across. Once it's done and in QA, then I can say, right, this is where we got to. And maybe there are a couple of things that weren't able to or not. But, we're working hard. We know what you want and how important it is. And we're trying to get it done as quickly as we can.
Cool. Sorry, I'm trying to respond to somebody in the chat as well. Okay, so let's leave progress transfer there. Let's go on to preservation crew. Again, touched on it during the roadmap stream because at the moment we've obviously committed to the stuff that's already on the roadmap. And again, please check out the roadmap if you haven't already, because it hopefully clearly shows which things we're hoping to bring to TSW2, which things we're hoping to bring to TSW3. Within the roadmap, we kind of gave a bit of a summary as to where we think the next direction of the preservation crew will be going. But Matt, do you want to just quickly refresh people's memories just before we get into the kind of some of your questions about it?
Yeah, so preservation crew. One of the comments I've had about from where we've talked about preservation crew in the past is, does that mean that they're not going to be looking after the legacy routes anymore? No, they will still be doing stuff with the legacy routes. So but what they'll be doing is mostly focusing on the critical issues and trying to get through those as fast as possible so that we can make sure that all of the routes work. We're going to look at getting the. I'm going to keep calling them preservation crew. They're going to have a name change at some point, but I think there's still debate about that. So let me call it preservation crew for the time being. But it's because they're going to have a wider remit. One of the things that they're going to have a wider remit on is we want them to come along after we've launched a route and look at the feedback that you've been given not just in terms of what may or may not have been missed in terms of issues, but where you think the route could have been better in terms of, one of the things that preservation crew have been really good at is really polishing up routes. They made some of the older routes into a real platinum level. West Somerset got beautiful updates, so did Main Specibon. So it's like, well, what can we do with a route that's just come out that everyone's hyped about and has given us feedback on, and maybe 6, 8, 10, whatever, however it plans out in that kind of time frame, they'll come along and absolutely and give a good update to that route. Now, the detail of it will depend on the route, depending on the timing, but this is kind of where we want to do is so that when a route comes out, you know that there'll be another pass on that route that will take into account your sort of your key feedback that's come in. So kind of excited by that. It feels like that's a really good thing, and what it should do is stop anything languishing in a not working state, because sometimes things are not great and they've been left, and then it takes a while for preservation crew to get to them because frankly there's a lot to do. This means that they'll be hitting stuff as it comes out, so it's all the new content you're buying should all get then looked after and upgraded a bit. So that's pretty cool. The preservation team also look after third parties. There's a wide range of different activities that team get involved in. The last one that they also do obviously is they built the training center, and so Adam and his team are going to be looking at what else we do with training center, how we expand that with new tutorials. There's 4 fundamental tutorials in there at the moment, and we want that to be more. The original design they put together had, I think, 8 or 10 of them on there. So there's more to come that we can do on that. And again, we're looking at the feedback we get from yourself, the players, about what would you like to see in the way of tutorials, and that may feed into some of the stuff that they're doing as well. So there's a broad range of things that team are going to be looking at, not just preservation crew, but that is still part of what they're doing. So don't be afraid that it's going away. It's just going to be expanded.
Yeah, and their primary role is going to be obviously within Train Sim World 3. But the existing stuff that we've got on our plates for the roadmap for Train Sim World 2 include things like the Bakerloo timetable, Peninsula Corridor update, the other ones that I can't remember off the top of my head, but everything's on there already, and those are being committed to being released on Train Sim World 2 and Train Sim World 3. They will likely come first in Train Sim World 3 though, because that's the build, I guess, that a lot of the team are currently working on, and then we'll have to make sure that, as I say, when we've got that out, then we can sort of start the work or continue the work that's been done on the Train Sim World 2 versions. Is that am I summarising that okay,
Yeah,
Matt?
that's exactly. It's tedious logistical reasons that it's going to come out on TSW3 first, but it's don't panic. They'll come out on TSW2 when the dust has settled. We're not putting the TSW2 repository to bed, so it's going to be available. So if there's anything in the future want to change in both, then the roadmap is how we'll communicate this stuff going forward.
Cool. Okay. So you've answered one of the questions already, which was great, which is from Marius Saw. So Marius Saw, thank you very much for the question. It was around preservation crew and where are they going to be required in the future? So that's our first player question of the evening that we've already crossed through. Second one is coming from Tallboy, which is kind of a similar kind of thing that we've just chatted about in terms of Train Sim World 2, not getting the features coming to Train Sim World 3 other than the dynamic weather. Actually, we have a little update on dynamic weather and something else. But it's why is it that the Train Sim World 2 routes aren't getting some of those features?
So whereas it was a relatively easy process to update the Train Sim World 2 routes, Train Sim World 2020 routes to Train Sim World 2 features, it's actually a big job to convert a route from Train Sim World 2 to Train Sim World 3 features. The whole relighting of the route is very much a non-trivial task, quite time-consuming. And at the moment, Adam's team, I don't think, are even skilled up to do that. You need a lighting engineer who can actually do that stuff. Light is a different kind of tool for you doing your art. And Adam's got a really good team for doing route things and train things. Light is a new tool, so we're still building out that skill. And just rather than get bogged down in doing nothing but, I mean, if we were to try and upgrade all of the old content to TSW3, they would get nothing done but that for 2 or 3 years. Even if you expanded the team a bit, it's a huge job. Livery designer is still going. I think we're barely halfway through livery designer. That's another example of a job that was a really big one. And this is bigger than that. So it's so basically, rather than trying to put out a promise of we'll upgrade it, it's just not good. It's not practical. That's why we're saying it's not going to be done.
Okay. I think that's fair enough. Again, we've talked about some of the things that we would like the preservation crew to be doing, and having them blocked up in doing those larger scale improvements to maybe one route where they could be doing lots of other good things for other stuff in game feels like a much more kind of sensible approach for us longer term. I did allude to something beforehand around so obviously dynamic weather will be porting back into the Train Sim World 2 routes that you might have.
So dynamic weather is actually, it's not a porting thing. This is why it's why it effectively.
Please correct my terminology, Matt, because.
Well, no, this is just an example of why it becomes. So dynamic weather is available across everything, but it's because it's part of the menu system. In the new UI that's been developed, it's actually a core feature to the game, which means that in the UI you pick dynamic weather, you'll get dynamic weather. And if you're using a TSW3 route, you'll get the big 3D clouds doing their morphing and changing. In TSW2 routes, or compatible routes, you get the 2D skies still, but they'll morph and change as well. So it still reacts to what's going on in dynamic weather, and I think that's one of the only things that is actually part of the core, except that lightning also, the new lightning effect also comes across to those, because that's actually referenced and powered by the new dynamic weather system in core as well. So you get, all the nice new dramatic weather will appear in your Train Sim Mod 2 routes.
Yeah, that's also very exciting. If you want to do that manually as well, you just need to turn up the precipitation to maximum, isn't it? If you wanted to.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. No. It's that's also good. It's something that I think we'll be adding to our FAQs. Well, be adding it to them as soon as I can ask one of the team to add them to it, because it sounds like that's something that we need to perhaps be a little bit clearer on when we're talking about the weather features and stuff. But it sounds like, as I say, lightning is a good little addition to that dynamic weather system as well. Cool. Sorry, my cat is also being very annoying at the moment. You might have seen him sort of wander around the back of the shot a little bit. He's wanting a little bit of love and attention. And if you're all really good in the chat, I might, if he's still here, I'll show him at the end of the stream. Okay. So Sonic Scott asks, will Train Sim World 3 have improved optimization over Train Sim World 2? Things like smoother frame rates, less stuttering, etc.
So there's no changes on that front. So expect, as I said earlier in the stream, on similar hardware, expect Train Sim World 3 to run similarly to how it did on Train Sim World 2.
Okay. Dan Xbox account asks, are these longer routes? So obviously we've talked about the routes being longer than perhaps any that we've ever done before in Train Sim World. Are these going to be the new standard in terms of overall length, or are we going to mix it up a little bit still?
Oh, we always pick out the route length that fits the experience that we want to deliver with that route. It's not really, even in this case, we didn't necessarily get set out to pick the longest routes that we could make. It's actually what we ended up doing. We picked the German route as 186 kilometers because we hadn't done an intercity or a high-speed route that actually felt like you were taking advantage of the fact you were going up to these kinds of speeds. LGV was the longest high-speed route we'd done, and you still felt like you're a bit speeding up and then slowing down again. So that route was picked particularly for that. The US route, we wanted to do BNSF and heavy freight. That route happened to be 85 miles. And then the UK one, we wanted to take the Great Route and just and make that one better. The fact that they've ended up being super long routes is, we're not afraid of doing long routes, but we want to pick the routes that make sense. Sometimes that means a shorter route is perfectly fine. Cathcart Circle is a fantastic route, but it's only about 25 miles or something. Whereas another route, like the German Kassel-Würzburg, is 186 kilometers and wouldn't really work any less than that. So we pick the right lengths for the routes that we know that give a fun gameplay experience.
So it's experience over length then, essentially. So what we're talking about here is, I mean, again, Island Line is another really good example of actually a really packed route full of stuff. I know that was obviously built by Rivet, but it's quite a short route, but it's got so much stuff in it that it feels like that experience is still there. So I think when we're talking about route length, perhaps it's something where we should be talking about when we're talking about sort of in the preview live streams, for instance. Obviously, length is something that a lot of people take a lot of stead in, but it's perhaps the experience that we should be kind of focusing in on when we're talking about those routes in future.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about the experience. Always has been, always will be. There's no point making a massive route if it's not going to be interesting.
Cool. Okay, and following on from that, Calidor asks, longer routes, exclamation mark. What are the new length caps roughly, and are longer trains more than 800 cars now a possibility? So that's kind of a two-parter.
So I don't actually know what the length caps are, and they haven't changed. We've never built a route that hits those length caps, to my knowledge. And we built some of the underlying parts of the system able to deal with enormous routes. What limits the length of a route is the time required to create it. There's a couple of questions coming up about whether we use the auto generation tool we talked about, and don't overestimate how much that auto generation tool is doing. It's still these routes you're looking at are still by and large hand built. When they've now got a tool that supports them with some of the laborious work, but it's still by and large hand built, and that's actually what limits the length of the route, practically speaking. again, we make the route the right length. We give it the time that it needs to do, but there is no magic. Oh, now all routes can be 100 plus miles. That's just not how it works. And a train's longer than 100 cars now a possibility. No more so than previously. So the longer the train, the more time Simulgraph is spending with the physics of that train, and we're finding that 100 cars is a sensible limit to still make it run sensibly on PC and Gen 9 hardware, and we're using 50 car limit for Gen 8 hardware, so that you've still got enough processing power for the rest of the game to run. We've already significantly optimized Simulgraph to even get to that level, so I don't anticipate any big changes coming up anytime. So this is it's where it is as with TSW2, not really any change there.
Cool. Okay, I'm going to answer the next one because I know the answer like the back of my hand to this one now. Officer 2506, if we buy a Preserve Collection add-on for TSW2 after the launch of TSW3, will we get the TSW3 version for free? Yes, you will. It will be frontwards compatible with Train Sim World 3. So no worries on that one. Just in terms of the Preserved Collection, what we're calling TSW3 compatible, what that means is everything that you can currently play on Train Sim World 2 will be ported over to Train Sim World 3 on day one. The only exceptions to that are the 3 core routes for Train Sim World 2, so Bakerloo, Colnarken and Sandpatch Grade, and also the New Journeys expansion, just because they require slightly different setup on the store side of things, because they have never previously had a store page before, so they'll just be added slightly later, apart from New Journeys, which requires those three routes in the first place. So there will be a little bit of a delay on that one, but we're aiming to get that out soon after release. So if you don't see those on day one, that's why. Okay, Calidor also asks, no, I tell you, this is kind of related. Are the TSW2 DLCs or add-ons that are being downloaded in TSW3 identical? If so, rather than having to do that big old download on day one, could we instead make a small downloadable utility to verify the licenses and locally copy over those files for TSW3? I know installation times is a big thing. Is there a way for players to get around it, or is it just going to have to be you sit and sort of download them as you go through?
No, unfortunately, you'll have to download them. All the files, even if a route hasn't been changed, they've all been recooked more than once actually in the course of the development cycle. So you will need to download the TSW3 versions.
Cool. Okay. These are some, again, keeping with the kind of more general theme. These are hopefully going to be slightly shorter answers for you, Matt, so you don't have to go into...
Is that a hint?
There's a little bit of a hint. So these are about third-party publishers and Train Sim World 3. Okay, so Kazu's asked, seeing Just Trains join the boat at the beginning of the year has been great, but we haven't had any other third-party developers doing so since then. Are things being done to attract more developers into Train Sim World? And there's a second part, which is anyone's close to joining the program. We're not going to obviously talk about those tonight because it's not our place to say it at this stage. But what are we doing to try and attract more developers into Train Sim World?
So at the moment, we need to make the tooling more accessible, not in terms of ease of use, but in terms of just getting access to the tooling. It's awkward and time-consuming and difficult to get to the editor at the moment, and that's slowing down us getting the rolling on new partners. We've got several partners waiting to start building, and they're starting to plan and prep what they might be doing as projects. I think Just Trains are the newest partner that's come on board, and they're doing well. The plan is once we've got things like Save Game and Red Light out the way, the engineering team are going to work on resolving these problems of getting access to the editor, and then we can start casting the net wider and inviting more people in as third-party developers. The good news is there's plenty of people waiting, excited to start looking at it, and again, once we've got these other things out the way, then we'll be making that accessible for them.
Cool. And Clumsy Pacer asked a similar question as well, but I think you've covered the answer to that one, so we'll move on. The 3 routes themselves, whilst we're on the subject of kind of external support and external help, Red Rev asks, have the 3 routes produced all been produced in-house, or have you utilised contractors or third parties to undertake some of the work as well?
So yeah, we always use outsource help for every project pretty much. It's actually quite rare that we don't get external help from anything. We use Rivet helped us with Southeastern high speed extension. You've got Mike who did the 401 ICE1. Will set up on the audio for that, and actually I think a different third party might have made the model. Then you've got the Jim Millis guy who does the awesome train horns for us in the States. He helped us with the horns for the BNSF trains. Armstrong Powerhouse, we purchased audio from Armstrong to update the Class 66, to update wagon sounds, and just all sorts. We actually have a really rich community of people who we really love working with, and it just helps bring that wide range of talent into what we do. So always keen to work with other people.
Yeah, and am I right in thinking that Rivet have also helped with Southeastern as well?
That's what I said.
Sorry,
yeah.
Yes. Okay, I might have missed that one at the start.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, so that's it's a collaborative enterprise. Obviously, there's a lot of work that goes into making sure all of this fits together at the end of the process, and we want to try and make sure, as I say, that we're using as many different expertises as we possibly can do to give you the best experience that we can. Question from FD1003. Will we see? So we had the Pringles competition go into Train Sim World 2, with the winner going into Train Sim World. I think we said Train Sim World. Can we confirm whether the Pringles competition will continue into Train Sim World 3 and what it's going to look like?
So there'll be advertising boards. Those aren't backed by the dynamic advertising. They're just pieces of art. So they're not giving away any of your information. Don't worry about that. They're just so the Pringles boards will be there, brightening the place up in a few places, and the winner at some point will appear as well. So that all happens in Train Sim World 3.
And dynamic billboards still a
Yeah,
feature?
the BidStack dynamic advertising is still a feature, and we're working with BidStack to try and improve the quality of what's actually being shown in the game as well, because that's not quite gone as good as we were hoping. So we're working on improving that.
Cool. Okay. Achievements and trophies we've touched on already, but are we able to confirm? We've kind of skirted around how it might work in Train Sim World 3. Can you confirm how the achievements are going to be working in TSW3?
Yeah, so in Train Sim Mode 3, there'll be 14 core achievements, which don't require any specific route or train or anything. So they'll be progressible, and those will be your core. Those will be what you get your platinum when you've done those. And then every route will have 3 achievements. So if you've got Deluxe Edition, then there are 12 obviously to have there. But every single route from the Preserved Collection, everything that's come across, will also be getting 3 achievements. I think the number I got given was something like 173 achievements in total. So there will be achievements day one for everything, as it's usable. But these are different achievements to what you had on TSW2 as well.
And we had a bit of an issue with the amount of achievements that we could include within Train Sim World 2. Does this future-proof it? I'm using a very corporate word there. Sorry. Does this make it so that it's something that we won't have to worry about again in the future?
It doesn't make it an unlimited solution. There is no unlimited solution, unfortunately. What it does do is it shifts the bar considerably into the future.
Okay.
So it should be it's not a problem for now. And what it does do, hopefully, is it allows the platform owners that have these limitations to the opportunity, if they wish to, extend and resolve the problem bigger. And if they don't, then we've got time to think of a better solution.
Okay. Then Simon Trainer 81 has asked, will the TSW2 core routes be counted towards the PS5 add-ons limit? If so, can I remove any? Answer is yes, and you just simply wouldn't download them at the start. So the add-ons limit only counts for stuff that you've downloaded. We're hoping to get the solution out to TSW3 for the add-ons 64 gig add-ons limit soon after release. It might well be that it even comes before we release the Bakerloo, Konarken, and Sandpatch individual releases anyway. But in that case, you just wouldn't download them if you're trying to economize on space, because it's it's something, unfortunately, that PlayStation 5 players are going to have to manage in the short term. We're hoping that, as I say, with the core routes that are going to be provided within Train Sim World 3, you're going to have enough fun with those that you're not necessarily going to need to try that for too long before we can get this improvement out.
Yeah, the team are working hard on the add-on manager in TSW2, TSW3, and as I've said previously on other streams, the beta testers that are using it are having a good time with it. Actually, it's working well, so that's very positive, and it's just getting that over the line and then getting it integrated into 3.
Yeah, we're hoping to get it into Train Sim World 2 before the release of Train Sim World 3 as well. So more on that when we've been able to confirm a release date for it. It's currently in beta though. Will this open the door for more extensions? And I've forgotten to note down who asks that question, but there were quite a few questions about, okay, does this mean we're going to get more extensions?
No more so than previous. This was a really good opportunity because it was a brand new product, bringing across Southeastern, and there was like, what could we do? Could we do it better and bigger? At this point in time, I don't think we're planning on doing anything more with extensions. So no more so than previously is the answer to that question, I think.
Okay. So, sorry, I'm just trying to read some of these as I'm going through, just to make sure I'm reading them right. Cloudy Skies 21. Considering the high popularity of certain TSW2 routes, does that mean these existing routes, say for instance London Commuter or Hamburg-Lübeck, will never get any further DLC or add-ons for them unless there is some kind of an extension, as with Southeastern on Train Sim World 3?
There's no reason why we couldn't do a DLC on those routes. So I've got no plans to share in terms of that stuff, but there's certainly nothing technically stopping us, and there's no reason from an interest perspective why, if it's a popularly played route and there's an obvious loco DLC or something to put on it, then it's one of the things that's in the pot for consideration potentially.
That would only be available for TSW3 though, right? If
that would be in the TSW3, so there'll be no more DLC released for TSW2.
No. And again, to confirm, those would all be inverted commas decoupled as well. If we were to release a piece of a loco add-on, that would be decoupled from its route if you wanted to use it elsewhere or on Training Centre.
Yes. So going forwards, as we've said, if you buy a loco DLC, a TSW3 loco DLC, so one of the newer loco DLCs as they come out going forward, then those ones won't require you to own a route anymore. You'll be able to buy it even if you don't have the route. Obviously, if you haven't got the route, you can't play the scenarios because you need the route for the scenarios. But you'll be able to use Scenario Planner, put it anywhere you like.
Nice one. Okay, and that's really exciting. If again, we were talking about earlier the kind of the reasoning for like Train Sim World 3 and the training centre and all that kind of stuff. That's a really important functionality that we don't want to try and overlook with this, because it's something that we think a lot of players are really going to like and get a lot of use out of.
Yes.
Sharon E asks rail driver compatibility.
Yes, so rail driver compatibility is still present. It hasn't been changed since TSW2, and it's been added to all of the TSW3 content as well.
Okay. L89 asks, what resolution and quality settings can be expected for consoles? Will there be things like 4K and HD toggles like in TSW2?
That was the question I was supposed to get an answer for.
Oh no! We've come across our first. Matt, we asked Matt to find the answer earlier, and he had a few of these, and one of them just slipped through the net. Okay, we'll see if we can get an answer for you, and we'll update. We'll update tomorrow. We'll make a note of that one. Diesel Power asked, will adhesion physics be improved?
No change to adhesion physics.
Okay. Some more questions about Training Centre now, because we've got quite a few about things like route separation and how that might work in practice. So R. Jeeves asks, now you can select a service by train from the menu. Will that mean? I think Sam alluded to this potentially a bit earlier. Does that mean the list of stock will be tidied up? We've got instances of duplicate stock over different routes that's normally been kind of tidied up over time. In this case, if we own the correct add-on, could we run a more up-to-date version of the stock on the route it wasn't originally released for, i.e. the Brighton Main Line 377 on East Coastway? Very long question. But I think we've kind of half answered it before when we said that you'd still have the multiple versions.
You'll still have the multiple versions. Functionally, it'll still work the same. So the multiple options will be available, and you'll when you click on the dostos, you'll see however many you've got, and you'll pick the one that you want to use, and it will show you the places that those are able to use to work in. So it's not an ideal situation for that. We need to figure out the right solution for that going forwards, but that's where it is at the minute.
Okay. How will layers work with decoupling and the training center? So the ICE one, for instance, that's coming with Kassel-Würzburg, will that be able to be backported into older routes that might have that as a loco option?
It's not something we have done. It's not something we have on any plans to do. Is it technically possible? Yes, but it's not something that we've got any schedule to do.
Cool. And part B to that, substitutions.
Substitutions always work without should work without any extra requirement, as long as settings match up. We've not changed any settings, so if they work, they work. If they don't, they don't. So yeah, freight locos should slot in where freight locos go. The ICE one won't sub in anywhere because there's nothing like the ICE one. It's a big old train, the ICE one, so there's nothing like it for it to sub into. So that would require layers to activate that on other routes, for example.
Okay. MLP Derek asks for the decoupling process, that will be for future add-ons only at this stage. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the plan.
Mr. Asieru said, bearing in mind loco add-ons will no longer depend on a route. Does that mean the loco will only have one version across all routes? So when a bug were to get fixed on the loco, or if it was to get updated, would that mean that all of the instances of that loco would happen for, or would it be very much again kind of like
this is a variation on the initial question about the tidied up problem of multiple dostos, and no, essentially each of the locos have their own unique instance. There's good reason why the situation is like that. That's difficult to get into, but it does mean that if you have a BR185 in Route A and then Route B comes out and it has a BR185, it will be a different BR185, and if there's then bugs fixed on that, they'll be fixed on that one and not on the previous one. So as an example, and it covers this later on, but since we're here, the BR185.2 in Kassel-Würzburg is quite significantly upgraded. Someone asked the question, is it up to the level of the BR185.5? It's beyond that. It's got fully rewritten functional LZB and all sorts of things on it. So but that's for that one, and doesn't affect the other ones that are in the library. So this multiple instances at different levels essentially continues on.
Okay. Migmad Marine, good name, does the removal of the requirement that locomotives and rolling stock be tied to particular routes have any... Oh no, we've asked this one already. Substitution. Sorry, ignore that one. That's about substitution. What tutorials will be included in the training center? And again, I've forgotten to add the person's name on that one. But which tutorials will be added in?
So in the training center, the location of the training center, as in the route, you get all the loco tutorials for all of the trains that come as part of Train Sim World 3. In addition to that, there are a couple of other tutorials, like as a tutorial that teaches you how American brake systems work, what the 3 brakes are, what you use them, when you use them. And that one's on Training Center. I can't remember what others there are, but there's some bits and pieces like that. But then in addition to that, via the menu system, the fundamentals tutorials, so the HUD, navigation, walking around, using the map and driving a train, they're all in the Training Center. And then using the user interface, the menu that Sam showed earlier on, where you can see the training center stuff in there. You'll be able to select any other training tutorials, and in addition to the stuff that's on the training center, we've added more advanced tutorials as well. And I'm going to not spoil the next question.
Yes. So Calidor asks, you mentioned the roadmap stream that LZB training would be included in the training center. Will other safety systems currently be used in the game, such as the signaling systems, also have training for them as well? Can you specify which will be now and which will be later?
So I'll talk about now. I won't talk about later because it's the undiscovered country. So TVM 430 on the Southeastern high speed, there's basically a tutorial where you're taken from Dagenham area into St Pancras, and it guides you through everything going on with TVM, what you're supposed to do, what it's telling you, and all the rest of it. There is the power changeover tutorial, which is starting from one side of Ebbsfleet. You drive in, power change, just out to the other side, change ends, drive out, power change. So just really short tutorial that does both sides of the power change element. And then on the Kassel route, there is a tutorial which teaches AFB, so you can learn how to use AFB on its own. And there is another tutorial which teaches you how to use LZB and AFB together. So it teaches you, fundamentally it's teaching about LZB, which also includes this thing in this route called dark signals, where the signals are switched off. Which is a feature, one of the features of where you're driving with LZB. So it's explaining what that means, what do you do with it, and all the rest of it. And then the last one is on the Cajon route. We teach you how to take a train up a hill, change that into going down a hill, and then keep control of that train and stop it. So it's teaching about, again, it's more practical experience of all the different braking systems and how you descend hills safely. And we've taken a lot of experience from the feedback and what we saw you doing on Sherman Hill, and some of the player mistakes, because there wasn't really great tutorials on Sherman Hill, so we've tried to build that into Cajon Pass.
Cool. And all of these tutorials that players might have seen before, have they been reworked as well?
So, like for example, the tutorial for the 375, the 395, they're all brand new tutorials. Everything, so all the loco tutorials are brand new tutorials on the training center, all new VO. We've got 5 VO recording artists working with us on this pack, and doing all sorts of different VO across the different routes. So all fresh, all new scripts, more detail in the scripts, and hopefully, because again, one of the bits of feedback we got is you said to press a button, you didn't say why. Therefore, I didn't learn anything.
That's very important as well. Someone that came into the company having not necessarily been that familiar with Train Sim World or train simulation in general. It's quite difficult. I find it easier to learn something if I understand why I'm doing it rather than just to do it. So having the why in there, I think, is going to be really important for people like me, but also perhaps people who have just done it in the same mechanical way for the last 5 years and not necessarily known why it is they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what we really, really would like to get is your feedback once you've played through them. If you're someone who doesn't normally play tutorials, play them anyway. And give us your feedback. Was it right? Did it capture what you want? Did you learn something new? Actually, some of the beta testers have actually commented that they learned something they weren't even aware of in certain aspects of it. Because one of them was in the tutorials which teach you just basic freight train tutorials. We include for American stuff. We also now include how to use the cut bar to release the coupling hook. And literally, someone who's been playing the game since TSW1 didn't realize that was all animated and working. But again, we did that because we saw a lot of people found that, when I tried to couple up my train, it just bounced off. What does that? And that's because we never taught you about the coupling hook and so forth. So we tried to build that stuff in. So give us the feedback. Tell us what you think, and then we can try, because we want to do more of these advanced tutorials. Now we've done a few. It's just like, yeah, these are really useful. So what we want to do is get the feedback for how useful you think and what we can do to do better on them.
Cool. Yeah, sounds good. And we might set up a separate thread for that when we come to launch as well. Telonius asks, will the training centre have its own timetable mode with a bunch of trains sitting around the yard for us to play with?
Yes.
Oh, it's going to be fun.
Yep, there's a timetable mode, but you can spawn on foot at various different locations around it. It's all nicely. One of the really cool things is you can do that by just in the training center UI. There's an explore on foot button right there, and then you spawn anywhere. Like there's trains everywhere, all manual junctions. Have a party.
Nice. And hopefully Sam and Adam will be having a party next week when they get the opportunity to try it out live for you next week.
I'm looking forward to it.
That's going to be carnage. It's going to be absolute carnage. Okay, one final question on the training centre, because it's come up a lot, and we probably need to talk about it, is the spelling. So it's the Americanized spelling. There's kind of no way really of getting around that. Why do we choose to do that? And why, say for instance, if I'm a British player, can it not be sent RE?
So the whole game is now localized to. We've done all the English text based on US English rather than UK English, and that's just one of those manifestations of that change. The reason it's US English rather than UK English, and I'll let Sam correct me if I get this wrong. He is still here. Is international English. Go on. Do you want to take it away, Sam, and just explain it better than I will?
Oh, wait a minute. Sam's audio, I'm not sure, is actually coming through on this right now because I've only got mine and Matt's going. So it's international English rather than American English.
Yeah. Why don't you switch it to the 3 window again?
Let's go to 3 cams quickly then.
We got the technology.
Hey, Sam's back! Woohoo!
It's international English.
Woohoo!
It is the main reason for doing it. And because English is used all over the world, and it is also the language used by those for whom English is not necessarily their first language. So in an unsupported, localized language, it just makes sense to be consistent with international English rather than UK English. And we felt that the UK audience was mature enough to understand that decision.
Okay.
There we go.
That's the answer.
Do you want to stay on, Sam? You happy to be on screen still? Do you want to still be here?
I don't. I've got nowhere else to be.
Right. Okay. We'll keep Sam on then. Makes it easier for me. I don't have to worry about changing scenes every few minutes. So,
JD's got the fear of changing scenes.
This is not like trying to do the actual live stream is one thing, and trying to do the talking and all of the reading the chat and stuff. I'm not built to multitask, so it's not ideal for me trying to switch through all of this stuff. But fingers crossed. Hopefully, you're getting the point of what we're trying to do here. All right. Let's move on to graphics and lighting. So we talked a little bit about in the roadmap stream, Matt, about the interiors of the trains and how they were perhaps going to be, particularly in sort of dark outside areas, they were going to be a little bit more defined. Will those interiors of the trains have the new lighting treatment as well to make them perhaps slightly less bright?
Yeah, so all of the trains, as part of having the new lighting system, everything that's got a light has to be changed. It's one of the reasons it's really difficult to put this lighting system on, or time consuming to put this on other routes, is that every light has to be retuned. So yeah, all the interiors will have been updated on that. Yeah.
Okay. Crazy asks, has rain been improved visually?
The falling raindrops are the same. We have splashes on the ground now. I think they've been in a video, but otherwise than that, no.
Okay. There were a couple of questions about draw distance. One of them was specifically for rain improvements, but I'm just going to ask it more generally. So draw distance in general, will there be any upgrades for Train Sim World 3?
No.
No. So expect the same as we've currently got within TSW2.
Yeah, we wanted the game to run equivalently to how it runs at the moment, and draw distance would have a big impact on that.
Okay. Matt Chester asks, this is something that he's quoted from the roadmap article, and it's probably good to clarify here because reading through it might be misinterpreted. So whilst TSW compatible content will not receive the new PBL lighting system, the new system will now detect various types of light and automatically adjust them to fit the lighting system they're running in. While this will not always result in the perfect lights, it will mean that the entire collection is cross-compatible on day one. So Matt Chester's read through that and says, with regards to the above, does that mean that the lighting might actually be worse for TSW2 add-ons in Train Sim World 3?
So, let me just clarify then. If you are running Train Sim World 2 trains in Train Sim World 2 routes on Train Sim World 3, they should run identically without any kind of change at all in the visuals. The problem is that on a train sim mode 3 route, so let's say Kassel-Würzburg, the lights are 1,000 times brighter. The world is 1,000 times brighter. If you bring if you bring a train sim mode 2 train, can't think of an example, and you put that via scenario planner onto your train sim mode 3 route, you will not see headlights. The cab light probably won't do anything because it's lighting up like the lightest, just the most wimpy candle you can imagine. It's not doing anything. It can't beat the massive daylight there is around it now. So what we do is, in those situations, the game looks for those lights and beefs them up so that when you run your TSW2 train on a TSW3 route, the lights work. It's an approximation because it's not going to be the same as manually handcrafting all of these lights to upgrade. What we did not want to do was draw a line between 2 and 3 content and say, no, you can't put your 2 content on 3. You can only live your true trains inside the 2 routes and the 3 chains in 3. Because we know everyone loves mixing and matching. We do as well. So we put the system in there to make the lights work better, and it's pretty close. It's not bad at all, and in most cases it's more than good enough. But like I said, 3 routes and 3 trains look great. 2 routes on 2 trains look identical to how they were before. It's only when you cross the streams that this code's got to come in. It works the other way. If you bring the BNSF ES44C4, which has got a portable sun on it compared to what's on the routes in Train Sim 2, you put it on Sherman Hill, it just whites the screen out because it's so bright. And again, the code will dim those lights down to the level of the lighting on there so that they look equivalent. It's quite a clever system and it works really well.
So obviously we're talking about this, and perhaps visuals would be a better way of being able to articulate that. Maybe tomorrow morning, I'm just going to make a note. Can we see if we can get a couple of screenshots of how that looks?
Yeah.
Okay. Screenshots. There we go. I've just put little screenshots in my diary. Okay. So yeah, just to condense that down. If you're playing a Train Sim World 2 loco on a Train Sim World 2 route on Train Sim World 3, you should see no change. If you are taking a Train Sim World 2 element, whether that's a loco, and putting that onto a Train Sim World 3 route via something like Scenario Planner, you will see a slightly different experience, but it shouldn't be worse. It should just be slightly different to perhaps you would see it in the Train Sim World 2 version. Cool.
Compared to, for example, it had been manually done by an artist.
Okay, fine. All right, dynamic weather. Chief Longshin asks, is dynamic weather random or just a coded event happening every 20 minutes?
So the dynamic weather system we've got in the game, and has the fundamentals of this have been in the game for ages, are a really clever system. If you imagine that there are a series of, and this goes into the next question as well. If you imagine you've got a series of weather patterns like no cloud, light cloud, light rain, heavy rain, lightning, and the system, what it will do is it will say, so in the user interface Sam showed earlier on, you pick the start weather. So say we start in light cloud, and then what it'll do is it will stay in that weather for a random amount of time, and we've set a sort of a minimum and maximum, and it'll pick a random time to stay in that, and then it will have that weather pattern. So light cloud will say maybe, and these aren't real examples but just numbers, maybe there's a 20% chance it becomes a clear sky. Maybe there's an 80% chance it becomes a heavy cloud. And then it will roll the dice and say, after a random amount of time, and say, okay, it looks like we're going to be going to a clear sky. And then it'll take a random amount of time to effect that change. So actually, there's a lot of random variations going on in there. And the pattern that it follows is not linear. It could wander all around this little complex graph of changing weather patterns. We could go from light cloud to no cloud to light cloud to heavy cloud. What we didn't want to do.
You could have answered this question by going, yes, it's random. But it's realistically random.
What we didn't want to do was just...
It's only going to move to an adjacent weather pattern.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the thing. What we didn't want to do is just sort of say, it's clear skies, it's heavy skies, it's clear skies, it's snowing. Because that's not realistic. That's horrible.
So, yeah. So it's not going to go from bright summer sunshine to snow like that. It's going to go through a process and a pattern whereby that then becomes more relevant, and obviously you won't see things like snow in the summer months, unless the temperature hits below a certain level, which likely wouldn't happen in most cases.
No, in summer months it won't.
Blue's just asked, and this is a salient question because this comes up quite a bit, whether it's possible to have live weather based on either where you are or where the route itself takes place. The problem with that is you can already do it. Just go to custom weather and choose whatever the weather is now, because weather doesn't tend to move very often. The dynamic weather system is advancing the weather maybe a little bit more often than you'd see in the real world.
Yeah. So
I mean, the UK has very changeable weather, but even then, over the course of 45 minutes, you're probably in a static weather system.
Unless you've been where I have for the last 24 hours, in which case you've seen pretty much every weather condition under the sun. But yeah, we get what you mean, Matt. Sorry, Sam. Even it's one of those things which is a more natural, probably slightly hyper realistic approach to this, where, as I say, we want to try and make it so that if you're doing a 45-minute service, you might see a change of some description, but it's
Kevin's saying Flight Simulator has it, and I don't know. I mean, plucky Microsoft, and with all of their limited resources to be able to pull in live weather, I mean that's impressive stuff. Plus, not to forget, of course, that if you're going on a flight, it does tend to last a little bit longer than 45 minutes.
Also very true. So a couple of questions we got from Tube Spotter, Londo Spark, around dynamic weather in Scenario Planner. So is it something that can be set? Can the weather be set in Scenario Planner, or can dynamic weather be set in Scenario Planner?
No, Scenario Planner, as we said earlier on, hasn't seen any updates other than for its user interface. So no, you can't currently set any weather patterns at all in Scenario Planner. But it's in a list somewhere. Don't worry.
We talked about seasonal timetables. So DJCWEY, I don't know how you pronounce that. DJ Kui, maybe. I'm going to say that. In the reference to the autumn leaf fall timetable, that's slightly extended journey times to make allowance for smoother acceleration and braking. Will that be a thing in, say, the autumn timetable? Will there be adjusted times to hit as a driver of a train if, say, for instance, the weather is a bit more changeable, or the seasonal weather will determine, say, for instance, in the winter, that you're going to have more snow or less adhesion on the tracks?
No, so at the moment, seasonal timetables, what it does is it enables and disables services based on the time of the day, the month of the year, essentially. So what that means is that you can have winter-themed services running in the winter, or you can have summer holidays trains in the summer, rather than it being a completely different timetable set with different times and so forth. So what we wanted to do is to add some extra variety in terms of adding different trains at different times of the year.
Okay. Cool.
Is dynamic weather in Spawn on Foot? It is, isn't it?
Dynamic weather is in service mode, which includes Spawn on Foot.
Which includes Spawn on Foot. Yeah,
yes.
There you go.
Nice one. Dynamic weather coming to Legacy TSW routes going to include the new lightning effect. We answer this one later. By Train Clouds, which is a very appropriate name. Yes. Yes, it will do. We confirmed that earlier in the stream.
Yeah.
UI and accessibility. Sam, it's good to have you back.
Hello.
Princess Entraptor asked a couple of really good salient questions on things like accessibility. So for those of us with photosensitive issues, migraine triggers, that kind of thing, will some of the new lighting features like the light adaptation coming out of the tunnels, lightning, will they have toggle on and off options and things like motion blur currently does?
You want Matt?
There's no toggle
That's a Matt question.
There's no toggle for light adaptation. The way things stand at the moment, you need light adaptation because of the difference between light and dark. So what I really liked, because I'm always, as I've said a lot of times, really keen to get feedback from players who find the game challenging from an accessibility perspective. Let me know, and we'll what challenges you find in practical use, so that I can look into what can be done. Along those lines. It won't be about turning it off though, because otherwise the light just doesn't work if you turn it off.
Okay. And
Liam's asked whether the UI has been updated for autistic players. and we already do accessibility testing. So everything is tested according to the best accessibility tests that we know of. If Liam, if there's something specific you need us to test for there, if you know someone on who is on the autism spectrum who has specific needs for UI, please do get in touch because we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
So if you get in touch, then we can address that.
Yeah, obviously we want to try and make the game as accessible as we possibly can
We
do
want
for
it to be playable by as many
people
people
as
as
we can.
possible.
Yeah. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
if there is any specific requirements, let us know. We can't promise they're going to be in for day one, but we'll take a look and see what we can do. With the UI and menus, will certain aspects of the system which require toggling on a route by route basis, things like stop markers that don't remember your setting between play sessions, will they be getting addressed? Should players expect those to be functioning as they should be on launch?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Okay, that was. I'm just seeing if there's any other kind of accessibility questions on the chat. In which case, I don't see anything specifically towards that.
Just to add, if you go back and have a look at the Sam's video at the beginning, you can see we put all the accessibility settings in one place now. So hopefully those settings are easier to find, and their function as being, to help you play the game is now more clear. Because sometimes the accessibility settings weren't clear. It was to help accessibility. It was lumped in a big old wodge of other stuff. So hopefully that helps. And again, as Sam and I both said, we want your feedback.
Yeah.
So that we can always make it better. The whole UI has been through color blindness filters, which is something we've been doing now for a while, but we're generating something new. I know that Jordan and Caspian have been working hard on making sure that everything goes through full color blindness filters as well. So it should be good. But let us know what your feedback is.
Send your feedback either to Matt, JD, or myself. In that regard, I've done, or Alex. Any of the team via the forum will happily receive that kind of feedback.
Cool. Josh asks a good. Josh, you're actually in the chat just while we're kind of switching between sections. If they have got early access, will they get access to the TSW2 compatible or TSW3 compatible routes that you can play in TSW2? Those won't be available until launch. But anything so that the 3 core routes and also if you've got the deluxe edition Spirit of Steam, they'll be available to play during the early access window. Everything else will come on launch day. That's a very good point, actually. We should have asked that. We should have put that as a question beforehand. But thank you very much for raising that, Joshua. Southeastern. There are lots of questions about the specific locos I can see in the chat, and I was sort of because we were getting towards the Southeastern section, I didn't want to sort of jump out and say them right now. But the locos that are involved in or included within the routes of the 465, 375, 395 have the sounds and or the physics of the 375, 395 and the 465 been updated on Southeastern?
So the 465 hasn't been touched. I think its volumes might have been changed a little to bring them in line with the rest of it, but fundamentally no, because it was perfect as it was. The 395 has had some tweaks and improvements to it, and some rebalancing and so forth. 375 is now upgraded to the same standard as the London Commuter 377. So they've had audio updates to them as well. Not mentioned in that list, the Class 66 has a whole new sound set from Armstrong, and they've got some new wagons in there, so the things like the MFA and JNA, they've got all new sound sets on them as well. So actually, there's quite a big sound overhaul on Southeastern.
You'll be able to hear it in action on the previous stream.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And physics as well.
The 66 has had a big physics update, so got new functionality. The distance counter is now working correctly, because we were talking with a 66 driver, and they've shown us how it's supposed to work. 375, I think, is up to standard as the London Commuter in every respect, including physics and so forth. So yeah.
Okay, cool. Sorry, there we go. There are new scenarios, so important to note with Southeastern that obviously there are new scenarios coming as well as the ones that you will have already might have done or you might not have done. Are there any interesting features for any of the scenarios, either for Southeastern or any of the other routes that are coming with Train Sim World 3?
Well, I guess people can find out. I don't want to
Preview
spoil
streams
everything.
and then spoilers.
We've got a great track record
if you
for
just
that
want
at
to
the
see
moment.
someone play it, wait till it's out, and there'll be some young upstart with a YouTube channel who's out there, he's playing through all of the important stuff, so you can experience it through someone else's eyes. So no, we're not going to spoil that for you. There you go.
We want it.
The gameplay team have had some good fun. I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah. Tell us more. Graham Haddon says, "Tell us more about approach control, please."
Approach control. So approach control is something that means that let's say you're driving along the line and there is a diverging path, so you're coming off on a junction, and that junction is much slower. What they do is this thing called approach control to ensure that you have slowed down, and that means that the signal protecting the junction is locked to a red light. Even if the route actually is available behind you, the signal gets locked to a red light. So you get double yellow, single yellow, red. And as you approach that red, once you've been in that section for a certain amount of time, I believe it's done by a timer, that red will pop up to whatever it's supposed to be. And it's to ensure that you have slowed down before that you get there. Because if you weren't slowing down, you'd go through the red light, all the alarms would go off, train would come to a stop, and trouble would happen. But by doing this, you get that. Now, Who Junction, there's a scenario actually in the pack where you drive and you have to go into Who Junction. And that's one example where I've seen it. Where you go there. But actually the approach control is quite common on the route for diverging paths. So as you're approaching a red light, keep going, pull up to the red light, and then you should see it pop back up to a yellow or green, depending on what the accessibility is behind that light. It's a very cool feature, and it gives a little bit more variety to what's going on.
Nice.
And it hasn't caused me to spad at all so far, Red Leader. Not at least 5 times, no.
I don't, Matt. Have we decided who's driving the Southeastern stream yet? Is it James?
Probably.
Okay, fine. So we can watch James in action then, running that route.
Yes, it will be James.
Yeah. Matt will also be on that one, I believe. We're giving you a Thursday off because myself and Lucas are doing the Kassel-Würzburg on Thursday. Ralphan97 asks, has the Southeastern timetable be changed to make it easier to stick to time on the Class 395 on the classic part of the route? Because I know that's a thing that players were having a little bit of a challenge with.
So this is a Joe and James timetable. It's a completely new timetable built from the ground up. It's based, if I recall rightly, on the 2019 timetables, the pre-COVID timetable, so very busy. And all of the timings done to the same standard that Joe built the London commuter timetable. So in terms of setup times, in terms of the realistic times for each of the station stops, it should be good.
And Joe's just confirmed in the chat that he said yes. So I assume that it's going to be more manageable.
Yes.
I think that was also mentioned. That might have been mentioned in the roadmap article, but if not, I think James or Joe have confirmed it somewhere else. But there it is, us confirming it now. It should be more.
It's a fun timetable.
MR Lutz asks, we say Ebbsfleet is now accessible. He's been a few times, or they've been a few times, and to get to the lower platforms, the upper platform requires walking through the station itself, out of the doors and under the tracks to reach platforms 5 and 6. At least that's how they did it. Is that the same, or have we cheated a little?
So if you are on the Ebbsfleet upper platforms, the domestic platforms, you will go down a set of stairs all the way down until you get to the big, if you're familiar with the station, there's this big stairway that leads you up and out of the underground section. Yeah, then you walk through the sliding doors until you get to the main glass building of Ebbsfleet. You'll then turn right past the ticket desks, down the escalators or the steps onto the platform. Is it a 100% perfect replica of the real thing? No. It's quite close and incredibly recognizable.
And you can see it next Thursday in the preview stream. That might be the answer to a few of these questions, by the way, but we wanted to try and squeeze in some of the things that we saw asked more than once on the question thread.
And the good thing about preview streams is it's done live, So if you've got something specific you want to see, you can see it there and then.
Yes, what I will say is for the preview streams, we are going to do elements of it live, and we are going to do elements that are going to be pre-recorded, just because it means that we can then keep it all killer, no filler, and we can then showcase all the kind of the things that we think you're going to want to see within a reasonable time frame. So we're going to have an elements of live gameplay, and we're going to have elements of kind of, hey, we're going to swap to this just so we can do a little 5-minute segment on this specific thing. Kassel. Swiss Trains asked, did Mike Goltz, TSG, work with Dovetail on the ICE one? I think we touched on this earlier.
He did.
Yeah.
He worked on the sound and all the physics setup and so forth of it, and the physical control of the train. Everything that wasn't the 3D model. I can't actually remember who did the 3D model. Might have been internally produced or by one of our contracting agencies. But Mike did a lot of work on that, and it's awesome. We also had a lot of help from somebody who actually drives the ICE one in terms of working with Mike and describing the nuances. Like, you sat stationary in the ICE one at the station, you put the throttle on, and nothing happens for a while. A few seconds while all of the fans spool up, and it's all captured. It's a treat to drive.
And you can see it on Thursday. We touched on this earlier. Has the BR 185.2 been improved to the standard of the 185.5? Matt, you have good news on this one.
Yeah, it's been improved beyond the standard of the 185.5. LZB has been rewritten entirely as well. It's like a new train.
Always good to experience new things. Will the BR 185.5 and the 182 sub in later?
So I asked Lucas this earlier on, and he said the 182 subs in. He didn't confirm about the 185.5 though. So we'll try and we'll get a better answer for that for you on the Kassel preview stream.
Are there any German freight wagons? Any new German freight wagons?
Yeah, we've got a new Kajils, KJILS wagon.
Cool. And are we able in Scenario Planner on Kassel-Würzburg to use the stations on the line where the ICE does not stop?
Again, we'll get a better answer for you this one on the stream. But when I spoke to Lucas, it sounded like the answer was no.
Okay, so take that as a no for the time being.
We built the route for the ICE for the ICE trains rather than the S-Bahn trains or the regional trains.
Okay. A couple of quick questions on Cajon then. We're coming into the home straight, don't worry, guys. Does Cajon Pass include working distance counters on either or both of the locos?
The ES44C4 has working distance counter.
Great. And Suomen Sirkain Unakuski, I'm assuming that's a Finnish name. Does the ES44C4 have new sounds, or will it use the sounds from Horseshoe Curve?
They're different sounds from Horseshoe Curve. They're one sounds that also haven't been used before in any of the train sims. They're not sounds we've gone out and freshly recorded, but they are sounds from an ES44C4. So they're not the same as the AC sounds that were on Horseshoe Curve.
Cool. And new horn as well, as we established in the roadmap.
Oh yes, lovely horn. Jim does an amazing job on the horns.
Are there any other is there any container unloading or loading happening at San Bernardino Yard?
No, there is not.
No. Okay. All right, we've come to the end of the kind of those sorts of questions. I'm just going to check and see in the chat if there is anything else that we want to try and address at this point. There's a lot of questions about multiplayer. Should we just talk about multiplayer? Now we've got all of you on the...
I think that we ought to do a dedicated stream about multiplayer, even though the answer is going to be no, there is no news regarding multiplayer that's coming. But I think if people would be interested to get an understanding of what would we think about if we were doing multiplayer, and why is it so challenging to do it in TSW3, and why hasn't it turned up yet, and do a dedicated stream on that topic, I think some people would turn up to watch it. But the answer, the spoiler, so you don't need to watch it if that stream happens, is there isn't going to be multiplayer.
No. I mean, the live stream sounds interesting. I think it's something that we'd probably save for after quite a long time after release of TSW3. But if there's interest, then let us know and we'll see if we can put something together.
Rick's asked if we're not going to do multiplayer, can we look at co-op instead? Co-op is multiplayer.
I was going to say that sounds like the same thing to me in a different
Yeah,
with a different
co-op.
wording.
Co-op's just a different description for multiplayer, unless you mean local co-op, which I suspect you do. So a couch co-op system where you've got two people operating the same train side by side, effectively. We can talk about that as well.
Okay.
CH actually asked an interesting question about banking com. So for Cajon Pass, we've made sure that that banking com works transparently, essentially. So you still have to switch it on in the lead loco, but it will then auto configure all of the other locos in the rest of the train, so you don't have to wander around the train. And we have a 4+2+2 formation, everyone exciting, on a big heavy train, which all works beautifully with the banking com as well. So yeah, 8 loco train. It's a beast to drive. It's good fun.
Good. Sean Crafty's asked a question actually. This might be one that we would give a little bit more information of on various different preview streams, but are there any rail tours services for any of the routes?
On Southeastern there is. I don't think there are on the other ones, but on Southeastern there is. And I'm going to stop there.
Before you say something you're going to regret. No.
I wouldn't regret it, but other people might regret it.
Okay. All right, let's go into our little quick fire round, shall we? These are going to be hopefully yes, no, or a little bit of commentary questions. We're going to try and blitz through these as much as we can because I think they're fairly yes or no-y. So we're going to call this the no round because the answers to these ones are all unfortunately not. So Camille K asks, Steam Cloud saves? No.
No.
Do we see TSW3 ever getting a Nintendo Switch version?
No.
And add to that mobile, Android, iOS. That's also...
That's it's a very, very different platform, significantly underperforming an Xbox One. So, no, I don't see that happening.
Passenger behaviour updates?
Nope.
HDR support?
Nope.
DirectX 12?
Nope, still on 11.
Would we extend locos as well as routes?
Nothing planned.
Ebola?
Still remains on the list of things we want to do, but not something we have implemented at the moment, and we don't have concrete plans to implement it.
Okay. HUD improvements?
No.
No.
Same HUD.
Okay, that there endeth the no round. These are all slightly more hopefully positive things that we can talk about with. Oh, Matt, what have you?
Not quite true. Actually, not quite true in terms of HUD improvements. Small thing. Get Lucas to show it to you on the stream related to PZB.
We're encouraging Lucas to show his small thing. What?
It's a small HUD change.
Oh, I see. Okay.
There's a reason why we brought you back on, Matt. Sam, even. Oh my God,
I
was so late.
I was going to say, with the big list of no's, obviously, we'd love to do all of that stuff. We'd love to, but we can only tackle so much at once. And for this year's release, we went after the stuff that people were asking for the most.
Yep.
Most people were asking for dynamic weather and improved lighting. They wanted longer high-speed routes and lengthy, freight routes and stuff like that. And route extent. We tried to do what you asked us to do, but we couldn't get everything. There are some really big things that we couldn't get to. That we really would love to. Things like the map desperately needs looking at. Scenario plan, livery designer 2.0. We desperately want to get to. But we can only accomplish so much in a certain amount of time.
Absolutely.
So we take the decision we take in terms of what we're going to target and go after it. But that inevitably means that some things don't make the list.
Yeah.
People wanted the save game function to work. That's why we're trying to fix it. But we decided that it was better to have something not present at all than not working half the time.
Yes. So let's go on to other quickfire questions. I mean, this isn't really quickfire. I don't know why I've called it this one. What is new and improved on Spirit of Steam?
So all we've done on Spirit of Steam for this release is the lighting overhaul. So we've updated it to fit the new lighting system. All of the other stuff that we've talked about in the past regarding physics, manual firing, and so forth, that work is still ongoing. And it's not ready to be released yet.
There are a couple of, I did have a quick look, and I think there are a couple of bug fixes as well. Things like the fireman not appearing all of the time should be
Yeah,
fixed
there's
with
been
that.
some
The bauxite or the mineral wagons being in the wrong orders, that should be fixed with the launch of TSW3 as well. So there are a couple of smaller tweaks, but the bigger things, which I assume is what this question was geared towards, Matt's just answered as well. Will the updated Spirit of Steam be available to players during early access? Yes. It'll be part of the early access for players who or for people who buy deluxe or who already have it in their system. So it should be something that you can just download when you get. It should be available for download as you would a normal add-on. And yeah, that's another quick question about early access. Is you can get early access at any point during that early access window. So if you were buying it on the Sunday of the early access window, you'd still get early access. What is the performance and stability like on Xbox One/PS4?
So the team, this is the area they're working on at the minute, is purely on optimization across the board. It's running well, actually, but they're going to be making more improvements over time. So we should end up in a good place in terms of where it runs on PS4 and Xbox One. It's already very playable. And someone actually asked earlier on, does that include volumetric skies and the new lighting? Yes, that does.
Yeah, and important to note, there is testing going on all of the different platforms that you can play the game on as well. So it's not just that we're prioritizing Gen 9 for testing. There is testing that's going on 8th Gen consoles as well.
No, absolutely.
Katia asks a question around cameras in TSW3. I currently, with the exception of the new Isle of Wight route, I can set the camera to a front nose view outside the front of the cab so I can see more of the surroundings. When TSW2 was released, it threw me inside the cab at every tunnel, which constantly interrupts the game flow. Can you confirm if this will be a problem with TSW3?
So I was a little confused by this question because we fixed the basically when we relaunched the Bakerloo line, we had a thing which made all tunnels throw the camera back in the cab, and it wasn't really meant to put all cameras in, just the Bakerloo line once, and that's been fixed for a while now. But just to check that, I actually ran Kassel-Würzburg and Southeastern high speed earlier on with the camera stuck on the nose of the train, and it stayed exactly where it was supposed to do. So if you have any problems with specific routes throwing the camera into different places, raise a support ticket, please, because it shouldn't be doing that.
Cool. Other 8th Gen questions we will cover when we're closer to release, when we have a definitive list of what the experience is going to be different for 8th Gen and 9th Gen, if there are any differences. All right, we've got to the end of our... Oh, no, we haven't got to the end of our questions. Sorry, there was one that I wanted to keep just for the very end. But I'm just going to see if there's any more in the chat that we can just quickly rattle through. What freight is available in Southeastern? We'll come on to that in the live stream on next Thursday. Will the updated BR185 also sub into all the routes? I think we answered this one in a different way.
Should do.
Yeah. All of the rest of them, I think, or many of the rest of them, we have any new ambient sounds? That's a good question from Crazy Killer.
Put that to one side and let me get a proper answer from Adam rather than guessing.
Yeah, because we have got the audio team on a live stream next Wednesday, to talk a little bit about some of the sounds of Train Sim World 3. So
they've done a lot of work all over the place. So rather than me guessing, there's some really good stuff there. I'll give one example that the rain effect when you're in the cab, they've made that sound a lot better.
So we'll come on to those next week, and Jamie and the audio team will be jumping on to talk a little bit about sounds next Wednesday. So put that in your diary if you're interested. I think everything else has already been answered, so we'll be regurgitating stuff we've already said. We're going to try and timestamp this video as much as we can do, so that if you're interested in a particular area, you know where to go to get the answer for it. And we're not going to be able to timestamp every single question, unfortunately, but we'll kind of group them as much as we possibly can do. Hopefully, I know that there's a couple of people in the Discord that are making notes as we're going through this. I don't envy your task tonight, so if they have that, they should be able to sort of hopefully put that together as well, and so you've got a little bit of I forget the word, transcript of the live stream as well. Wanted to finish on this question. So R. Jeeves asks, on a more personal note for Matt, from the 2 streams this week, we can see that after a year as exec producer, has it been a year? Wow, that's flown,
Jeez.
Matt. You are really proud of what you and the team have created with TSW3. Is the version, is this version what you've been aiming for as your ultimate train sim, or is there still more work to be done? Don't want you to give out any spoilers, but how are you feeling with TSW3?
So, without a shadow of a doubt, I am the proudest I've ever been on what the team has created for Train Sim World 3, and the team are really proud of what they've created as well. Like, we have really good conversations, and you can just tell from the tone of the voices that everyone's really, normally in a software game development cycle, everyone's a bit at this point, but actually everyone's, they're smiling, they're really enjoying it, they're really happy with what's been produced, and I'm right there with them. Is it my ultimate train sim? I don't think we'll ever get to my ultimate train sim. It's like the best model railways that are never ever finished. It's, do we get lots of ideas from you? I have endless ideas, and we come up with ideas from the rest of the team. There's always new great things to do. But if you'd asked me 10 years ago, said this is what you're going to be playing in 10 years' time, I would have been no. So I'm just over the moon with what we've got here. It's really good fun.
Nice. That's a nice
continuous evolution.
Continuous evolution, yeah. We talked a little bit about some of the things that we'd like to do sort of in the last 10 minutes or so. So as I say, I think if we'd said, yes, this is absolutely everything that we've ever wanted it to be, it probably wouldn't have rung true. But as you say, constant evolution, something that we want to try and keep improving on and keep providing you new opportunities to experience the game and in different ways. So we hope that's covered as much ground as we can possibly do over the course of the last couple of hours. We've covered a lot of ground on lots and lots of different subjects related to Train Sim World 3, a little bit of Train Sim World 2 bits and pieces in there as well. So I hope that's cleared a few things up. If there are still things that need a little bit more information, then obviously we will try and get that to you as soon as we possibly can do. Things like 8th gen, things like progress transfer, things like some of the things that were specific to routes, where we'll go into more detail during the actual live streams or preview live streams of those routes. I think that's pretty much covered it. If you're looking for the Railfan TV schedule for the next couple of weeks, if you want to pencil a few things in, what we currently have is the Kassel-Würzburg preview this Thursday. Next Tuesday will be Training Centre. Wednesday will be the audio team doing a Q&A. Thursday will be the Southeastern preview. Tuesday after that, I think we're talking weather and environment. The Wednesday after that, I can't remember the dates off the top of my head now, is going to be, I think we asked Kat to do a Let's Make a Livery stream for a piece of Train Sim World 3 content. And then Thursday is the Cajon Pass preview, and then we're going to do a Spirit of Steam session on the Friday, which I believe is early access day. I think that's about as far as we've got at the moment. We'll have some stuff in launch week as well, but we'll tell you about that later on in the line. That's enough to be getting on with for the time being. Thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you very much, Sam, for jumping in and out and giving us a little bit of a kick up the backside when we needed to move on with things.
I felt you needed to not be too happy.
And you've done a marvellous job.
Sometimes you need bad cop.
Yeah, and Matt, thank you very much for obviously coming on, talking about all of this different stuff, being that encyclopedia of knowledge that we know that you are. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching at home. Thank you for submitting your questions. We've tried to cover as much as we can. Hopefully, we've been able to cover 99% of everything that's been asked. If it hasn't been, then let us know in the forums and we'll try our best to get you an answer. But if you've missed some of this, recommend watching it on VOD, because the likelihood is it's probably been covered in some form in the course of the last couple of hours. Leaves me to just say thank you very much, everybody, for watching, and we will catch you. I'll catch you on Thursday with Lucas, where we're doing a little old exciting preview of Kassel-Würzburg. Thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll see you a little bit later. Good night.
Cheers, all.